I knew the system was going to shit the bed before I even unlocked the server room door. It wasn't a notification on my phone. Those useless apps the new DevOps team built only tell you the building is burning after the ash has already settled in your coffee. No, I could smell it. The air conditioning in the basement of the regional headquarters always hums a specific B-flat note when the processor load hits 92%. Today, it was screaming a sharp C. I walked in, dropping my bag on a chair that had been ergonomically condemned in 2004. The terminal screen was blinking that toxic green cursor, the heartbeat of a beast that had been keeping this bank's financial organs pumping since the Berlin Wall came down. A batch error. Error code 0x889F. The ghost of Christmas past. You cranky son of a bitch, I muttered, taking a sip of coffee that tasted like battery acid and regret. What did they feed you last night? It was a syntax error in the overnight wire transfer protocol. Some junior developer, probably one of the new hires who thinks Python is a personality trait, had tried to patch a COBOL subroutine with a script that had no business touching the core. It was like trying to fuel a Saturn V rocket with oat milk. I cracked my knuckles, sounded like a gunshot in the quiet hum of the room, and started typing. Now, look, before I get into how I surgically removed their incompetence from the source code, do me a solid. If you enjoy watching corporate trains derail in slow motion, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and smash the like. It fuels my caffeine addiction and keeps me from throwing servers through windows. Seriously, it helps more than you know. Done? Good. Let's get back to the disaster. It took me 45 minutes to untangle the mess. I had to manually bypass the security handshake because the new script had locked the front door and swallowed the key. I was deep in the hex dump, wading through lines of code written by guys who are probably dead or living on a boat in Key West by now. This wasn't coding in the way these kids do it today with their colorful text editors and AI assistants. This was plumbing. I was elbow deep in the digital sewage, clearing a clog with a rusty snake. By 8 o'clock a.m., the transfers were flowing again. No one upstairs had a clue. They were all sipping their lattes, complaining about the Wi-Fi speed, completely unaware that their mortgages and payrolls had been hanging by a thread I just stitched back together. That's when he walked in. Chase, 25 years old. Title, Lead Digital Transformation Evangelist. I swear to God, that's what his email signature says. He looked like he was generated by an AI prompted with Silicon Valley tech bro who owns a podcast. Vest over a hoodie. Veja sneakers that cost more than my first car. A beard that was groomed better than my golden retriever. Helen, he chirped, too loud for a room that required reverence. He clapped his hands together. The dungeon keeper. How's the fossil collection doing this morning? I didn't turn around. I kept my eyes on the green glow. The fossils just processed $3 billion in overnight settlements while you were putting collagen in your coffee, Chase. What do you want? Always a ray of sunshine, he laughed. It was that hollow, corporate laugh, the kind that sounds like styrofoam rubbing together. Look, we're having a town hall in 10. The board wants an update on the migration strategy. Need you there. I'm busy, I said, terminating the command line. The batch job needs a manual verify, or the pension funds for the entire tri-state area will route to a slush fund in the Caymans. The system can handle it, Chase said, leaning against a server rack that contained sensitive client data from 1993. That's the problem, Helen. You treat this thing like a baby. We need to treat it like software. Automation. Scalability. Buzzwords. He didn't actually say buzzwords, but he might as well have. He tapped the metal casing of the mainframe. We need to talk about the future, Helen. You can't keep manually cranking the engine on this Model T forever. It's not a Model T, Chase, I said, finally spinning my chair around. It's a nuclear reactor. And I'm the only one here who knows how to read the Geiger counter. He smirked. That condescending, pitying smirk that young men give older women when they think we're confused about how the VCR works. Right, well, come upstairs, we have announcements, big changes. I watched him walk out. He had that bounce in his step, the confidence of mediocrity. I looked back at my screen, the cursor blinked, it felt like a warning. I went to the town hall. I stood in the back, leaning against the wall, arms crossed over my cardigan. The room was full of fresh faces, kids fresh out of college, cheap labor masked as innovation. Chase was on stage, clicking through a PowerPoint that had more stock photos of rockets than actual data. We are pivoting, Chase announced, throwing his arms wide, to a cloud-native serverless architecture. We are cutting the anchor, we are shedding the dead weight. He made eye contact with me, just for a second, but it was enough. Dead weight, he repeated. The room erupted in applause. They were clapping for their own execution, they just didn't know it yet, but me. I felt a cold, calm wash over me. It was the same feeling I got when I traced a memory leak to a faulty capacitor. I knew exactly where the break was. I wasn't the anchor. I was the chain, and they were about to find out what happens when you cut the chain while the ship is still at sea. I went back to the basement. I didn't fix the pension verify. I let it sit in the queue, just a little test, a control group. If Chase was right, the system would handle it. Spoiler alert, the system did not handle it. But that was tomorrow's problem. Today, I just had to survive the meeting Chase had put on my calendar for 4 o'clock p.m. Subject, transition. Dead weight, I whispered to myself. Buddy, you have no idea how heavy I really am. The 4 o'clock p.m. meeting was held in a glass-walled conference room named Synergy. The irony was thick enough to choke a horse. Chase was there, sitting at the head of the table. Next to him was a woman from HR I'd never met, a 20-something with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, and a binder that looked like it contained my autopsy report. Her name tag said Tiffany People and Culture. I sat down. I didn't bring a notebook. I didn't bring a pen. I brought my coffee mug, the one that says I replace you with a shell script in faded letters. I set it down on the mahogany table without a coaster. Tiffany flinched. Helen, Chase started, clasping his hands together like he was praying to the gods of LinkedIn. Thanks for joining us. We want to keep this transparent. Cut the crap, Chase, I said, my voice gravelly. Am I fired or am I being promoted to customer? Tiffany gasped softly. Chase's smile faltered, then reassembled itself into a mask of professional concern. We're restructuring, Helen. The bank is moving toward an agile methodology. We need developers who are native to the new stack. React, Node, Kubernetes. I learned Kubernetes over a weekend just to see what the fuss was about, I said, leaning back. It's cute, but it doesn't run the core ledger. The core ledger runs on COBOL 85. Who's going to run the ledger, Chase? We've hired a vendor, Chase said quickly. Global Solutions. Top tier, they have a team of legacy experts. I snorted, experts. You mean a call center in a time zone 12 hours away where the experts are reading off a script I wrote in 2005? Good luck with that. This isn't a negotiation, Helen, Tiffany interjected, her voice sugary sweet but laced with arsenic. Your position is being eliminated effective immediately. We're offering a generous severance package, contingent, of course, on a smooth handover of knowledge. She slid a document across the table. It was thick. 2 weeks of pay for every year of service, she said. 34 years. That was a lot of money, enough to retire. Enough to buy a double wide in Florida and never look at a line of code again. But it wasn't about the money. It was about the insult. It was about being told that the engine I kept greased for 3 decades was suddenly obsolete by a kid who couldn't change a tire. And the handover? I asked, eyeing Chase. We need your documentation, Chase said. Access codes, system maps, patch history, everything. I looked at him. I looked at his soft hands, his perfectly coiffed hair, his complete lack of understanding of the monster living in the basement. Okay, I said. Chase blinked. He expected a fight. He expected me to scream, to cry, to throw the mug. Okay, he repeated. I saw the writing on the wall, Chase. I'm not blind. I'm old, remember? Old people prepare. I reached into my cardigan pocket and pulled out a USB drive. It was red. I put a piece of masking tape on it that read master keys. I slid it across the table. Everything is on there, I lied. Passwords to the root directory. The map of the batch dependencies. The fix for the leap year bug that I hard-coded in 1999. It's all there. Chase grabbed the USB drive like it was the One Ring. His eyes lit up. This is great, Helen, truly. I appreciate your professionalism. Just one thing, I said, standing up. Don't open the file named Pandora unless you really need to. It's complicated. Noted, Chase said, already dismissing me, his mind already on the bonus he was going to get for cutting the department budget. I signed the papers. I took my copy. I walked out of the room Synergy and went back to my desk. I grabbed my box of personal items, a framed photo of my dog, a stress ball shaped like a grenade, and my hidden stash of emergency nicotine gum. I didn't say goodbye to anyone. The kids in the open plan office didn't even look up from their noise-canceling headphones. I walked to the elevator. As the doors closed, I saw Chase high-fiving Tiffany in the conference room. He had the red USB drive. Here's what was actually on that drive. A 4,000-page text file containing the entire script of B-Movie, repeated 50 times, renamed as System Architecture TXT. A folder of passwords that were all variations of Chase is an Idiot 123, and a batch script that, if executed, would simply open a terminal window and display a ASCII art middle finger. The real documentation? The mental map of the spaghetti code? The specific timing required to restart the transaction server so it didn't overheat? That was in my head. And the daily maintenance scripts that kept the database from eating itself. I turned those off 5 minutes before the meeting. The ticking clock had started. I walked out of the building and into the parking lot. My F-150 started with a roar. I patted the dashboard. Let's go home, girl, I said. We've got a show to watch. I drove away, leaving behind a building that was essentially a ticking time bomb of digital incompetence. They wanted fresh blood. They were about to bleed out. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in 30 years. I slept in. I woke up at 8:30 a.m., staring at the ceiling fan, waiting for the panic to set in. The panic that the nightly batch failed. The panic that the Asia-Pacific markets didn't sink. But then I remembered, not my circus, not my monkeys. I made a pot of coffee, good coffee, not the swill from the break room, and walked out to my garden. I have a chaotic mess of tomatoes and peppers that I tend to with the same aggression I used to apply to debugging. I was pruning a jalapeno plant when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. It buzzed again and again. A long, sustained vibration that meant someone was calling. I pulled it out. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. 10 seconds later. Unknown number. I chuckled, took a sip of coffee, and deadheaded a petunia. Sounds like the morning wire transfer didn't go through, huh? Here's exactly what was happening 10 miles away, based on my intimate knowledge of that beautiful, broken architecture. At 8 o'clock a.m. sharp, the master control program, yes, we actually called it that. We were nerds in the 80s, attempts to archive the previous day's transaction logs. To do this, it needs to temporarily lock the database. Usually, I have a script that runs at 7:59 a.m. to clear the cache so the lock doesn't freeze the entire system. Chase didn't know about the cache script. It wasn't in the documentation I gave him. So, the database locked. And because the cache was full, it stayed locked. At 8:05 a.m., the tellers at the branch offices would have tried to log in. Their screens would have frozen, spinners spinning into eternity. At 8:15 a.m., the atoms would have started rejecting cards because they couldn't verify balances against the locked core. By 8:30 a.m., right about the time I was admiring my tomatoes, the queue of pending transactions would be hitting the buffer limit. When the buffer overflows, the mainframe doesn't just stop, it panics. It starts shedding tasks to save itself. First, it drops low-priority tasks, like internal email. Then, it drops reporting. Then, it drops the connection to the Federal Reserve. My phone buzzed again. A text message this time from an old colleague, Sarah, who worked in accounting. Helen, everything is down. People are running around screaming. Chase is sweating through his hoodie. Did you put a curse on the building? I replied, new phone, who dis? I went back inside and turned on the local news. It was a slow morning, mostly weather and traffic, but I knew. Give it an hour. I made myself some eggs. I put extra hot sauce on them. Sriracha. The spicy kick felt like victory. Around 10 o'clock a.m., the vendor Global Solutions would be logging in. They'd see the locked database. Their playbook would tell them to force restart. I chewed my toast slowly. Don't do it, I whispered to the TV screen. Don't force restart, you idiots. If you force restart while the cache is full, you corrupt the index. But they wouldn't know that, because the note about the index corruption was on a sticky note I'd thrown in the trash 3 years ago after I memorized it. My phone rang again. This time, the caller ID said Chase. I stared at the name. I could picture him, the panic in his eyes. The realization that his digital transformation was currently transforming the bank's assets into digital confetti. I let it ring. 1234, the voicemail picked up. You've reached Helen. I am currently obsolete. Please leave a message after the tone, or check the cloud. I hear it's very scalable. I sat on my porch and listened to the birds. It was the most peaceful sound I'd ever heard. But underneath the birdsong, I could hear the phantom scream of the cooling fans in the server room, spinning up to maximum RPM as the processors choked on their own data. The ghost was in the wires, and it was angry. By noon, the news broke. Technical difficulties at Regional First Bank causing outages across the state. Customers reporting zero balances. Atoms offline. I watched the reporter standing outside the HQ, my old building. Behind her, through the glass lobby doors, I could see people in suits running. Actually running. Looks like a code red, Chase, I murmured. Better check that USB drive. I poured another cup of coffee. I had nowhere to be, and I had a feeling the show was just getting started. By 1 o'clock p.m., the bank wasn't just broken. It was legally blind. The system had entered what we affectionately called the bunker. It's a fail-safe protocol written in 1994 by a guy named Gary who did acid on the weekends. Basically, if the mainframe detects that the transaction index is corrupted, which those idiots definitely did by force restarting, it assumes the bank is under cyber attack. It locks everything. The vault timers, the swift wire gateways, the elevators. Yes, the elevators. Gary was paranoid. So now the board of directors was likely stuck on the 12th floor, physically unable to leave while their stock price plummeted on the tickers in the lobby. I was finishing a crossword puzzle when my phone rang for the 47th time. It was the CTO, Marcus. Marcus was a decent guy, but he had no spine. He let Chase run wild because Chase used words like blockchain and synergy that sounded good in quarterly reports. I decided to answer. Hello? I sounded groggy, like I'd been napping. I hadn't. I'd been watching The Price is Right. Helen, oh God, Helen, Marcus sounded like he was hyperventilating into a paper bag. It's gone. It's all gone. The screens are black, white text only. It says halting, halting, halting over and over again. Sounds like a loop, I said, checking my nails. Did you try turning it off and on again? Helen, this isn't funny. We have the FDIC on line 1. We have the state regulators on line 2. Chase said you gave him the documentation, but the USB drive just has B-movie on it, Helen. Why is there B-movie? I like jazz, I said flatly. Look, Marcus, I don't work there anymore. Remember, I was dead weight. I'm currently pivoting to my garden. I need you back, Marcus pleaded. Consulting basis. Whatever, just come in. The vendor can't fix it. They don't even know what language this is. It's JCL mixed with assembly, I said, and tell your vendor good luck. That code is spaghetti, and I'm the only one who knows which noodle to pull. Helen, please name your price. I paused. This was the moment. The moment every unappreciated, overworked, invisible technician dreams of. The name your price moment. I did the math in my head. My severance was okay, but my dignity, that was expensive. I'll text you my terms, I said, and Marcus, tell Chase to get off my chair. I don't want his cologne on the fabric. I hung up. I didn't rush. I finished my crossword. 3 down, a sudden disastrous collapse, 5 letters. CRASH. Then I picked up my phone and typed the message. I wanted it to be clear. Brutal. From Helen to Marcus, CTO, consulting agreement terms. 1. Hourly rate $20,000 20,000 US dollars. 2. Minimum retainer 4 hours $80,000 upfront. 3. Payment, immediate wire transfer to the account on file. 4. Conditions, Chase is not allowed to speak to me. He is not allowed to look at me. If he uses a buzzword in my presence, I leave and you forfeit the retainer. Reply YES to accept. I hit send. The little delivered bubble appeared. 3 seconds later, the 3 dots of typing appeared. Yes, then a second text. Wire initiated. Please hurry. The elevators are getting hot. I smiled. I stood up and walked to my closet. I didn't put on a suit. I didn't put on business casual. I put on my favorite pair of worn-out jeans, a black t-shirt that said Nostromo Crew from Alien, and my old, oil-stained flannel. Grabbed my laptop. I grabbed a fresh pack of Marlboros. All right, Gary, I said to the ghost of the programmer who built the bunker. Let's go open the doors. I drove to the bank. The parking lot was chaos. News vans, police cars, probably because of the trapped elevators, employees smoking nervously on the curbs. When I pulled up to the security gate, the guard, Mike, an old buddy of mine, saw me. He didn't ask for ID. He just saluted and raised the barrier. "Give him hell, Helen," he shouted. I parked in the CEO's spot, 'cause why not? I walked through the lobby. It was silent except for the frantic clicking of keyboards and the hushed whispers of terrified managers. As I walked toward the elevators, which were locked, obviously, Marcus came running down the stairs, sweating through his expensive suit. "Helen, thank God, the wire cleared. It's in your account." "Good," I said. "Stairs?" "Stairs," he panted. We walked down to the basement. The air was thick, hot. The vent was struggling to keep up with the heat coming off the server racks, and there was Chase. He was standing in the corner, looking pale, holding that red USB drive like a grenade that had already gone off. He looked at me. He opened his mouth. "Ah," I pointed a finger at him. "Rule number 4, Chase. Silence." He snapped his mouth shut. I sat down in my old chair. It was still warm. I wiped the armrest with a sanitizer wipe I pulled from my pocket. I cracked my knuckles. I looked at the black screen with the white text, halting, halting, halting. "Okay," I said. "Yes, indoors. Yes, in a server room. Let's see how bad you broke my baby." The server room smelled like ozone and fear, mostly fear. The building was already effectively burning down. "Everyone out," I said, not looking away from the screen. "Except Marcus and Chase." "I thought you said." Marcus started. "Chase needs to watch," I interrupted. "It's a training opportunity. He likes learning, right? Continuous education or whatever you put on those posters in the break room." The rest of the staff, the Global Solutions guys who looked like they were about to vomit, filed out. The door clicked shut. It was just the 3 of us and the hum of a dying machine. I typed CMD, override/auth, Helen V1. The screen blinked. Password required. I typed the password. It was 24 characters long, a mix of Klingon, my grandmother's birthday, and the serial number of the first toaster I ever fixed. I didn't look at the keys. Muscle memory. Access granted. The halting loop stopped. The screen cleared. A single prompt appeared. "Is it fixed?" Chase whispered. He couldn't help himself. I spun the chair around slowly. "Fixed? Chase, honey, we haven't even opened the hood yet. All I did was unlock the door so we can look at the engine." I turned back. "Marcus, get me a Diet Coke. The vending machine on the 3rd floor, the one that doesn't steal quarters." "I'm the CTO," Marcus stammered. "And I'm the consultant costing you $333 a minute," I said. "Chop, chop." Marcus ran. Now it was just me and Chase. I typed a query to check the database integrity. "Run, db check/deep." Lines of code began to scroll down the screen like the Matrix, but faster and uglier. Red error flags popped up every few seconds. Corruption sector 7G, index mismatch. Orphaned records 45,000. "Look at that," I said, pointing at the screen. "That's 45,000 people's paychecks currently floating in the digital void." "You know why?" Chase shook his head. He looked small. His hoodie, once a symbol of his tech bro status, now looked like a child's blanket he was hiding in. "Because you tried to apply a microservices architecture to a monolithic database without decoupling the dependencies first," I said. "You tried to put a Ferrari engine in a horse, and you shot the horse." "I read that it worked at Netflix," Chase muttered. "We aren't Netflix, Chase." I slammed my hand on the desk. The sound echoed. "We are a regional bank in the state. We don't stream movies. Keep people's life savings from disappearing. When Netflix breaks, people get bored. When we break, people don't eat." He flinched. "Good." The scrolling stopped. The damage assessment was done. It was bad. The index was shredded. I had to rebuild it manually. I had to take the transaction logs from the backup tape. Yes, tape, physical magnetic tape that these idiots probably tried to use as streamers for party, and stitch them back into the live core. Marcus came back with the Diet Coke. He was breathless. Here, he said, handing me the can. I cracked it open. The hiss was the only sound in the room. All right, I said. This is going to take about 3 hours. If anyone speaks, I start over. If anyone asks how much longer, I delete the backup. Understood, they nodded like bobbleheads. I put my hands on the keyboard, my old mechanical keyboard, the one with the heavy springs. Clack, 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 clack. I went to work. I wasn't coding anymore, I was weaving. I was pulling threads of data from the void and tying them back to their accounts. I was manually reconciling the ledger, line by line, using hexadecimal shorthand. It was grueling. My eyes burned. My fingers cramped, but I fell into the rhythm. The code spoke to me. It told me where it hurt. I'm sorry, the system seemed to say. They touched me. They didn't know the secret handshake. I know, baby, I thought. Mama's here. 2 hours in, the vents started to normalize. The screaming C note dropped back to a B flat. The processors were cooling down. I typed the final command. Execute, restore /force /override Gary. I hit enter. The screen went black for a terrifying 10 seconds. Marcus made a sound like a whimpering puppy. Then, a single green line of text appeared. System ready. Welcome back, Helen. Gary had programmed that greeting in 1995. Knew I'd be the one fixing it. I sat back. I took a long swig of warm Diet Coke. Elevators are unlocked, I said, my voice raspy. Atoms are coming online in 3, 2, 1. Somewhere upstairs, a cheer erupted. We could hear it through the ceiling vents. I looked at Chase. He was staring at the screen with his mouth open. How? He asked. How did you know which sectors to map? I stood up, grabbing my bag. Because I wrote them, Chase. I didn't read a Medium article about them. I wrote them. I checked my watch, 3 hours and 45 minutes. You owe me for the full 4-hour block. I walked toward the door. I'm going home. If it breaks again, my rate doubles. I didn't look back. I just wanted to get out of there before I punched the evangelist in the throat. Walking out of the server room felt like walking away from a plane crash I just safely landed on a freeway. My adrenaline was crashing, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion. But the look on the faces in the lobby, that was pure rocket fuel. The board of directors had finally escaped the elevators. They were huddled near the reception desk, looking disheveled. Ties loosened, sweat stains, the panic of rich men who had stared into the abyss of poverty for 3 hours. When I walked through the security turnstile, the CEO, Mr. Henderson, a man who hadn't learned my name in 15 years, spotted me. You. He pointed. He rushed over, flanked by his legal counsel. You're the lady from the basement. Helen, I said, not breaking stride. Helen, you fixed it. Is it stable? He looked like he wanted to grab my shoulders, but something in my eyes told him that would result in a broken wrist. It's stable, Mr. Henderson. For now. Assuming nobody tries to digitally transform it with a sledgehammer again. I saw Marcus and Chase emerging from the stairwell behind me. Chase looked like a ghost. Marcus looked like a man who was composing his resignation letter in his head. This is unacceptable. Henderson barked, turning his fury from me to Marcus. We were told the migration was seamless. We were told the legacy risk was mitigated. It was a unforeseen compatibility issue. Chase tried to interject, his voice cracking. The legacy architecture is incredibly brittle. It's not brittle. I spun around, my voice echoing in the marble lobby. It's precise, it's an atomic clock, and you tried to fix it with a hammer. Don't you dare blame the code, Chase. The code held this bank up while you were in diapers. The lobby went silent. Even the tellers stopped counting cash. I turned back to Henderson. Your lead evangelist uploaded a script that corrupted the core index. If I hadn't hard-coded a failsafe 20 years ago, you wouldn't just be offline, you'd be bankrupt. The data would have been irrecoverable. Henderson turned slowly to look at Chase. The look wasn't angry, it was something worse. It was the cold calculation of a man deciding who to throw off the lifeboat. Is this true? Henderson asked Marcus. Marcus looked at Chase. Then he looked at me, then he looked at the floor. Yes, sir. Helen saved the bank. I see, Henderson said. He turned back to me. Helen, we need to discuss your employment. Clearly. Mistake was made regarding your restructuring. I'm not interested in employment, Mr. Henderson, I said, hitching my bag higher on my shoulder. I have a very lucrative consulting business now. You have my rates on file. But I'm tired, I said. I'm going to go home, feed my dog, and drink a glass of wine that costs more than Chase's sneakers. If you need me, call my agent. Oh wait, I am my agent. I walked out the front doors. The evening air was cool. The sun was setting, painting the sky in bruised purple and gray. I got into my truck. I didn't turn on the radio, I just drove. My phone buzzed, a notification from my bank app. Incoming wire transfer, $80,000.00. Status, cleared. I smiled. It wasn't about the money. Okay, it was a little bit about the money. But mostly it was about the silence in that lobby. The silence of the innovators realizing that the foundation they stood on was built by people they considered invisible. I stopped at a liquor store on the way home. I bought a bottle of expensive bourbon. Celebrating? The clerk asked. Something like that, I said. Just reminded some kids why you don't touch the thermostat when you don't pay the bills. When I got home, I didn't log off. I knew the game wasn't over. Chase was wounded, but people like him. Teflon-coated corporate climbers, they survive. They spin the narrative. He'd blame the vendor. He'd blame the hardware. I needed to make sure the nail was in the coffin. I sat down at my kitchen table, opened my laptop, and pulled up the consultant's report I was contractually obligated to file. Usually these reports are dry. Summary of actions taken, recommendations, not this one. I cracked my knuckles. This report was going to be a masterpiece. I was going to document every single error, every single catastrophic judgment call Chase had made, timestamped and cross-referenced with the server logs. I was going to write the autopsy of his career. I spent the night writing the incident post-mortem analysis. In the corporate world, this document is usually a shield, a way to use passive voice, mistakes were made, to avoid blame. Mine was a sword. I titled it Root Cause Analysis, Systemic Failure Due to Negligent Management and Unauthorized Modification of Core Logic. Catchy, right? I broke it down minute by minute. 080000, user chase admin initiate script migrate legacy 01, sh. 080005, system warns, critical dependency violation. 080010, user chase admin executes override command sudo force y. Note, the digital equivalent of cutting the break lines to save weight. 080500, cache overflow. Database lock 120000, vendor attempts unauthorized restart, corrupting sector 7G. I included screenshots. I included chat logs where Chase told the offshore team to ignore the warnings. You're just noise. I concluded the report with a recommendations section containing a single bullet point: revoke administrative access for all personnel lacking COBOL certification and / or basic common sense. I emailed it to Marcus, Henderson, the entire board, and accidentally on purpose blind copied the regional regulator from the FDIC. Then I went to bed. The next morning the phone calls started, but they weren't panic calls. They were headhunters. News travels fast in banking IT. The story of the rogue migration and the consultant savior had leaked. Probably Mike the security guard, God bless him. Helen, this is Recruiter Dave from Apex Systems. We have a client, a national insurer, looking for a legacy systems architect. Name your price. Helen, this is Sarah from Chase Manhattan, the bank, not the idiot. We heard what happened. Can we buy you lunch? I let them all go to voicemail. I was busy forming my LLC, Gray Iron Consulting. Meanwhile, back at the bank, the meeting I didn't attend was taking place. Sarah, my friend in accounting, texted me the play-by-play. Sarah, they are reading your report out loud. Chase is crying, I'm not metaphorically speaking. Actual tears. Sarah, Henderson just asked Chase if he knows what a dependency loop is. Chase said it's a mindset. Henderson threw a pen. Sarah, legal is involved. You're talking about negligence. Chase is being escorted out. Security just took his badge. I sipped my coffee. Justice tastes better than bourbon. But then the twist. My doorbell rang around 2:00 p.m. It was Marcus. He looked like he hadn't slept in a week. He was holding a box of donuts in a thick envelope. Helen, he said, standing on my porch. Can I come in? Do you have a warrant? I asked. I have donuts and a job offer. I let him in. He sat at the kitchen table. Chase is gone, Marcus said. Terminated. Cause, we might sue him for the vendor fees. Good riddance, I said, grabbing a glazed donut. We want you back, Helen, CIO, Chief Information Officer. You run the show. You hire your team, you decide the strategy. No more chases, no more buzzwords. He slid the envelope across the table. The salary figure was obscene. It had a lot of zeros. I looked at it. It was everything I had wanted for 10 years. Recognition, power, the ability to do things right. I looked at Marcus. You fired me, Marcus. You let a 25-year-old with a Pinterest beard kick me out of the building I kept standing. I know, he whispered. I was weak. I'm sorry. I pushed the envelope back. No, Marcus blinked. No? Helen, look at the number. I see the number. But here's the thing, Marcus. If I come back, I'm an employee. I'm overhead. Eventually. Another Chase will come along. Another board member will want to cut costs, and I'll be fighting for my life again. I took a bite of the donut. But as a consultant, as Gray Iron Consulting, I'm a vendor, and you guys love paying vendors. You respect vendors, you fear vendors. I pulled a new contract out of my bag. I drafted it that morning. I'll manage your systems, remote. I'll come in once a month for updates. I'll train a team of my choosing. Young kids who actually want to learn how computers work, not just how to stack libraries. And you will pay me this retainer. Marcus looked at the contract. The monthly retainer was higher than the salary of the CIO role. This is expensive, he said. Cheaper than a crash, I smiled. He signed it. 2 days later, I was at the grocery store buying dog food when I saw him, Chase. He was in the cereal aisle, staring at a box of Frosted Flakes like it contained the secrets of the universe. He wasn't wearing the hoodie. He was wearing a wrinkly t-shirt. He looked young, just a kid. I tried to turn my cart around, but he saw me. Helen, I sighed. Chase. He walked over. He didn't have the swagger anymore. He looked like a dog that had been kicked. I heard you got the contract, he said. I did. That's cool. That's scalable. He tried to smile, but it failed. He looked at his feet. Look, I know I messed up. I wanted to make a mark, you know? I wanted to disrupt the industry. You disrupted it all right, I said. You almost disrupted it into Chapter 11. I don't get it, though, he said, looking up, sudden frustration in his eyes. I did everything right. The books say cloud native is superior. The latency is lower. The throughput is higher. Why did the mainframe fight me? I looked at this kid. He really didn't know. He thought it was a technical problem. It wasn't the mainframe, Chase. It was the architecture of the business. You can't replace the foundation of a skyscraper while people are still working on the 50th floor. You have to understand why the foundation was built that way first. I pointed to a shelf of generic cereal. You see that code? That spaghetti you laughed at? It wasn't messy because we were stupid. It was messy because every line was a fix for a specific problem that happened in 1989, or 1995, or 2008. That code was a history book. It was a map of every disaster we survived. You didn't read the history. You just tried to burn the book. Chase was silent. He picked at a thread on his shirt. I thought you were just holding on to the past, he mumbled. I am the past, Chase, I said, leaning in. The past is what the future stands on. You tried to float in the air. Gravity wins, always. I started to push my cart away. Helen, he called out. I stopped. I'm applying for a job at a startup. Crypto. They want someone with banking experience. I laughed, a real belly laugh. Tell them you learned a valuable lesson about immutable ledgers, I said. And Chase, don't touch the production server on a Friday. I walked away. I felt a strange sense of pity for him. He was a product of a system that valued speed over stability, hype over substance. He was a feature, not a bug, but bugs get squashed. I went home. I had a Zoom call with my new team at 4:00 p.m., 3 bright kids from the local community college. They didn't know what a stack was, but they knew how to read logic. I was going to teach them COBOL. I was going to teach them the dark arts. And I was going to charge the bank $300 an hour for their time. It's been 3 months since the crash. My garden looks amazing. The tomatoes are the size of softballs. The stress lines in my forehead have started to fade, replaced by a tan from working on my laptop on the patio. The bank is running smoothly. My gray iron team, I call them the necromancers because we raise dead code, has optimized the batch processing. We didn't migrate to the cloud. We built a bridge to it, a secure, slow, boring bridge. The board loves me. They treat me like a high priestess. Every month I send an invoice. Every month it gets paid within the hour. No questions asked. I was sitting on the deck tonight, enjoying a glass of Pinot Noir and listening to the hum of my own personal server. I host my own email, obviously. I don't trust Google when my phone buzzed. It was a text from a number I had blocked. My curiosity got the better of me, so I checked the blocked messages folder. It was Chase. Hey Helen, I'm at the new job. We have a legacy SQL database that's acting weird. It's locking up every time we try to shard it. Any quick tips trying to avoid a disaster, lol? I stared at the screen, the audacity, the sheer unadulterated balls on this kid. Lol, I whispered. He said lol. I could ignore it. I should ignore it, but I'm a businesswoman now. I unblocked the number. I typed a reply. To Chase from Gray Iron Consulting, consultation request received. My freelance rate for non-contract clients is $500 per text message. Venmo at Helen fixes it. Payment required before technical advice is dispensed. I hit send. 5 minutes passed. The crickets chirped. The wind rustled the leaves. Then ding. Venmo, you received $500.00 from Chase the Ace. I burst out laughing. I laughed until I choked on my wine. He actually paid it. He was that desperate. I picked up the phone. I typed my advice. Don't shard it. It's not web scale. Check the foreign key constraints and stop wearing sneakers to meetings. I reblocked the number. I sat back, looking at the moon. They call us dinosaurs. They call us obsolete. They say we don't understand the modern world. But here's the thing about dinosaurs. We were the apex predators for 100 million years. We survived everything except a literal meteor. And these kids, they aren't meteors, they're just hail. Annoying, loud, and they melt as soon as things get hot. I took a sip of wine. The system is stable. The lights are green, and the invoice is in the mail. We're all healed. You're the real MVPs of the office jungle. Thanks for watching. Smash that subscribe button, or the coffee pot might just forget your next brew.